Hi, IHM students. This is Maestra Claudia. I'm going to be reading a story to you all, and it's in English, but it has a cultural component to it, and it takes place in Spain, España. And we're going to also be doing an activity with the book. The book is applicable to all grades, and what you'll need is a jar. This is a spaghetti sauce jar. For upper grades, you can have a bigger one. For younger grades, you can have a plastic one for safety. And then make sure you have a lid. And you'll get to decorate it. And then we'll share it at a date that I will announce to you so we can all share our jars and share what goes in it. But let me read the story to you, and then you find out what goes in the jar. And how we say jar in Spanish is frasco. How we say frijoles and porotos, that means beans. So porotos is mostly used in South America as a term for calling beans, but worldly more known, we know it as frijoles. So we'll stick with frijoles for now. So this is called A Lot of Beans, and it's written by Barry Varela, and it's illustrated by Sebastian Serra. In a small village in the mountains of Spain lived Juan Fernandez de Villavicencio. Juan lived with his mother and father in the house his father and his father before him had been born in. At school, Juan studied reading, geography, and math. He played soccer with his friends Pablo, Guadalupe, and Marcus. He helped tend to his family's goats. So this is generational. They've lived in this house, and they tend to the family goats. At the end of each day, Juan put a single bean into a large jar. It had been a good day, he'd drop a white bean into the jar. If it had been a bad day, he'd put a black bean in the jar. Juan had learned this old Spanish tradition from his father. Juan's father had learned it from his father, who had learned it from his father before him. Juan had been putting beans in the jar for nearly 6 years. That's a lot of beans. That's a lot of frijoles. We won't be doing that for 6 years. We'll be doing this until the end of the school year. Now, it so happened that a few weeks before his 8th birthday, Juan hit a bad stretch. On Monday, he stubbed his big toe while getting out of bed. By that evening, he had had a blister, and so one black went into the jar, a black bean. On Tuesday, his pen leaked all over his grammar test. Juan flunked the test, so another black bean in the jar. On Wednesday, he stepped in something that one of the family goats had rudely left in the walkway. So another black bean went into the jar. On Thursday, well, you get the idea. A week passed, then two, nothing but bad days. Juan couldn't help thinking about all those black beans that were piling up. The more he thought, the more he worried. The more he worried, the more black beans he had. He forgot the capitals of Sweden and Peru. Do you know the capitals of Sweden and Peru? He headed the soccer ball with his face and ended up with a black eye. He lost his swim trunks at the neighborhood pool. At the end of each day, he'd drop another black bean into the jar. A whole month went by, and he'd had 30 unhappy days in a row. He stopped paying attention to his teacher. He stopped playing soccer with his friends. He stopped petting the family goats. His parents tried to cheer him up. His father suggested they go fishing together. His mother made caramel flan. Yum. His friends came by. Pablo told jokes. Guadalupe sang funny songs. Marcus juggled and did a silly dance, but nothing worked. Juan didn't feel like doing anything. At last, Juan's parents took him to the doctor, Don Rodrigo. My head aches. My stomach won't stop gurgling, and my tongue feels fuzzy, said Juan. Don Rodrigo examined him. I'm sorry, Juan, there's nothing I can do. You mean it's hopeless? Cried Juan's mother. Not at all, the doctor replied. I said merely that there's nothing I can do. When Juan wasn't looking, Don Rodrigo motioned to Juan's parents to come close. He said, I have an idea. Juan sat alone in his room. He looked at the jar of beans. He had to know. Were there more white beans or black beans inside of it? Was he a happy youth or a miserable wretch? Juan dumped the beans onto the floor. He separated them into two piles, white and black. Then he started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 60, 80, 200. Counting beans was a hard job. There were so many. Just before sundown, he had his answer. There were exactly 1,095 black beans and 1,095 white beans. It was a tie. So in Spanish, 1095 frijoles blancos, 1095 frijoles negros, and the tie is están empate, no? So did you know that there's different color frijoles? So there's blanco, there's negro, there's rojo, there's verde, café. There's different kind of colors. Juan's head ached, his stomach gurgled, his tongue felt fuzzier than ever, plus he was exhausted from counting all those beans. He definitely had a miserable day. In a few minutes, when the sun set, he would add a black bean to the pile. There would be one more black bean than white. At that moment, he would, without a doubt, become a miserable wretch. Or so he thought. Just then his friends Pablo, Guadalupe, and Marcus came into his room. With them were Juan's classmates from school, along with his teammates from the village soccer team. Right behind them were Juan's teachers and coaches, friends and neighbors and cousins, aunts and uncles and grandparents. At the back of the crowd were his parents. What are you doing here? Asked Juan. We invited all your friends and family over, said his father. To celebrate your birthday, added his mother. Juan had forgotten that today he turned 8 years old. Juan's teacher started playing the guitar. His soccer coach turned the empty jar upside down and played it like a drum. His grandparents clapped in rhythm and sang along. Everyone was dancing. Juan opened his birthday presents. He got a new pen, an atlas of the world with capitals of all the countries included, a pair of swim trunks that fit, and many other things. Thank you, everyone. Gracias, Juan exclaimed. He was in good spirits. By the time the last present was opened, the crowd was hungry. Juan said to his parents, I know what we can serve. What do you think they're going to serve? Let's see. They gathered up the beans and cooked them in 2 large pots. First, we have a white bean soup, Juan's father said, stirring it gently. You'll find it to be light and fresh and sweet with the laughter of Juan's good days. We call it happiness soup. The guests gathered around holding out their bowls. We also have a black bean stew, said Juan's mother, rich and spicy and salty with the tears of Juan's bad days. We call it misery stew. Juan filled the bowls of hungry Juan filled the bowls of his hungry guests with happiness soup and misery stew. Some got more happiness soup, some got more misery stew, but everyone got at least a taste of each. And all agreed that together the sweetness of happiness soup and the saltiness of misery stew made the meal complete. So every guest got a bowl of each of happiness soup and a misery stew soup, so they got to taste the 2 flavors. Also, rice and beans, we call it casamiento. That's usually a good mix. And beans with tortillas, but they just happen to be making a bean soup. And I know that there's also um, a bean soup, which has many different kinds of beans from different places. Maybe you've heard of it. At last the doctor, Don Rodrigo, arrived. "How are you feeling?" he asked Juan. Juan was dancing a fandango. A bowl of happiness, soup in one hand, and a bowl of misery stew in the other. "My head doesn't ache," he said. "My tongue doesn't feel fuzzy. My stomach stopped gurgling an hour ago. And after I'd eaten a couple bowls of happiness soup and misery stew." "Juan Fernandez de Villavicencio, you are cured," the doctor declared. A cheer went up. The party went on until all the happiness soup and misery stew had been eaten and the last guest had departed. Juan was very tired. He'd had a long day, but just before going to bed, Juan dropped a white bean into the empty jar. He was without a doubt a happy youth. So I know it's hard right now to stay at home. And we're doing the best that we can, all of us. We're all in this together. You can be creative. You can do notes, or you can do beans like the story. And you can even be more creative if you want to put in different beans for different things that mean something special to you. So today, because I read to you, I'm going to put a brown bean, okay? The black bean is, I'm sad because, I don't get to see all of you, but hopefully soon. And I miss you. And then I'll be putting in different kinds of beans. My son's decorating this one for him. And you can put notes in there. I had a good day because of this. Maybe I didn't have such a good day, or maybe I had a little bit of both. But this is certainly a good activity to do. And I hope you enjoyed this story, a lot of beans. I certainly like it, and I am looking forward to seeing your jars. And we'll keep the beans or the notes till the end of the school year, and I'll send a date, and then maybe we can all share it on Zoom. Have a blessed day. Take care. Be safe. Be well. Maestra Claudia sends a big hola. Take care. Bye.